We've come to this zero-sum mentality, all or nothing. I'm going to double down on my base, and I'm going to shrink the tent, make it as small as possible, leaving so many people kind of out there in the cold. We do have to get back to persuasion instead of just telling the other side they're evil and they're awful and we hate you and we're going to destroy you.
Nobody's persuaded by that. Nobody's like, great idea. You know what? I agree with you now. I'm going to vote for you because you told me that I'm stupid and terrible and the worst. How is that persuasive?
That's my favorite question. I went around and visited 29 high schools, and one in each county in our state. And that was one of the questions I would ask. How many of you have ever changed your mind because somebody mocked you, because somebody embarrassed you, because somebody criticized you? And I never see a single hand go up.
It's just human nature. We want to work with people who treat us with a certain level of respect, even if we have disagreement on something. You know, like even if we disagree on if the top marginal tax rate should be 22% or 28% or 50%, if the person that we're working with says, listen, you know what? I love a lot of the stuff Sharon's doing. I got to disagree with her on that top marginal tax rate, but I really appreciate where she's coming from on the school lunches. You know what? I'm real likely to work with you on the school lunches scenario, even if we can't agree on this other thing. And this idea that like compromise and coalition building has really been left by the wayside. Norman Mineta, before he died in 2022, even talked about this. Like, since when is compromise and doing something instead of nothing a dirty word? Like, isn't doing something better than doing absolutely nothing? If you can't have everything you want, then light it all on fire. How is that good governance?
Yeah, it's not good governance. And I can't believe that has become kind of the dominant thread in many of our governmental activities. But it is, and not just kind of on the fringes, but admittedly,
yes.
Like people are openly saying this, like, never compromise. It's all or nothing. It's winner take all, burn it down. And it's a huge mistake. Again, as you said, our republic cannot long survive that model. It was not set up to survive that model. And what happens when you do that, then every presidential election becomes far more important than it should be. Presidential elections were, by the way, and you know this, you've taught this, I've heard you say this, like Congress was meant to be the dominant force in our federal government. And the president has become more powerful over time for sure. And especially when Congress becomes inactive, which is what's happening now, that you end up where there's no coalition building happening.
That's right.
In a thinly divided Congress. Now the president is taking on more and more and more. And so we see it as a winner take all. If my team doesn't win this year, then it's over. The country's over. Like this, it's the end of the world, or it's World War III. It's another civil war. What you hear these things, these thoughts are actually out there, and it should never be that high stakes. It's in our lifetimes, it didn't matter who was the president. Life didn't change that much for us, if we're being honest, right? And it's still kind of that way today. Our day-to-day life really doesn't change that much, but we get so intoxicated with this fight. And again, this idea that we have to destroy the other side, because if they win, then they're going to destroy us, right? Now it is a zero-sum game. And that's not healthy for our souls. And it's certainly not healthy for our society.
And you can see a perfect example of this too, with, first of all, how unproductive this Congress has been, the least productive Congress in United States history. They ousted Kevin McCarthy, the Republican Speaker of the House, from his job as Speaker for working to avert a government shutdown with the Democrats, which frankly should be the job of anyone in Congress. How about we don't shut the government down? That's not that big of an ask, right? Like, pass a budget. That's actually kind of your whole job. And the idea that we would be like, you're done here. Get out. You cannot lead us if you attempt to avert a government shutdown. That's banana pants. That's really a bananas way of thinking.
I never would have believed it growing up. As I was studying political science, I never would have believed it. I'm team don't shut the government down, for the record. I just think that that's a really bad idea. And yet also I just have to point out what a small number of people it took to oust him. right? To make that happen.
Like a teeny handful.
Yeah, we're talking, 5 to 8 people that were able to completely paralyze our government for weeks and weeks and weeks because we didn't have a speaker and couldn't get one. And that's just how tenuous and ridiculous and kind of embarrassing, if I might, it has become for us on the world stage. And we see these builders, you look at the US Senate, there are builders out there who are willing to work together to find common ground, to try to actually get some things done. But we're losing them. And that's the fear. Again, that I'm an optimist. I believe in our better angels. I believe that there are so many good people working to do this, but I'm also a realist at times and see what's happening. And it's easy to get a little jaded when we see that happening for, compromising to keep the government open and seeing somebody lose their job because of that. Those aren't our best days.